Hey there, Vince here, and welcome to another Circuit Rewind. Today is going to be a little bit off the cuff. I didn't really think too much about what I wanted to say other than over the past several months, I've been replacing all of the networking gear in all the sites that I manage with Unifi equipment for the most part. This means that I've ripped out all of the MikroTik gear at this point. There's only one MikroTik switch left, and that one's actually going to stay in place. But otherwise, like all of the production gear is now running on Ubiquiti Unifi hardware, except for the edge routers, almost. And that's what I want to talk about today specifically, is one specific router where I'm actually using a Unifi router. The router in question that I decided to deploy is the UXG-Lite. I just needed something really bare bones and simple for this particular project. It is serving a symmetrical gigabit GPON fiber connection for one of the sites that I manage. The reason I'm deploying this right now is the CenturyLink router that was running there forever, the original one, way out of date, it just couldn't keep up, and we were getting a lot of just flat out connection drops. No idea why the ISP couldn't see it on their end, but my external monitoring and my internal monitoring would show that all of a sudden there would just be massive packet loss, and it would last for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden the connection would restore again. I contacted CenturyLink about it, and they're like, yeah, your router is horribly out of date, because I was one of the very first customers ever to have GPON service with CenturyLink, at least here in the Pacific Northwest. Probably within a week or two of their initial rollout. Like, I was hot right on it, right? Same router since then till now, so that's, I think, about a decade at this point. So it's been there a while. Anyway, they gave me another router. While setting up this new router, I just happened to glance at one of the status pages, which showed the number of active TCP and UDP sessions that the router was tracking. This was interesting because the router said I was using over 9,000 of the 10,000 max sessions it can track. It had an arbitrarily hard cap of 10,000, and it turns out the old router and the new router both had this hard cap. I think that's kind of dumb. It's arbitrary, it's random, and I'm pretty sure this is actually what was failing on the router. It would hit that 9,000 mark within a couple minutes of the router being powered on. Like, there's just that much traffic being routed through it, and with how long it was tracking these sessions, it would keep them in the state table for too long, and it would overload the state table to eventually, I think it was just crashing the router, and it would reboot itself, and that was that 5 to 10 minutes downtime that we would see. Instead of dealing with CenturyLink off and on, trying to diagnose this and figure out what's going on, I'm just like, screw it, I'm gonna replace it with something better. Now, mind you, this router does not do NAT like your normal home router. In this particular deployment, we actually have a block of static IPs. So it's a /29, and this is basically just acting as a dumb gateway. It does the PPPoE authentication with CenturyLink. It distributes the rest of that /29 to other downstream routers on my infrastructure, which happen to be OpenSense boxes running on Minis Forum MSO1s right now. There's multiple of those. So those do all the actual brute routing. They do the NAT routing. They have the IDS, IPS, application, gateway firewalls, the NATing, like the whole 9 yards is running through OpenSense. So I just needed a dumb box to go between the PPPoE interface of CenturyLink and the public IPs of my actual brute force routers. So I didn't actually need that powerful of a system. So I think this router is going to do me pretty good. So I got it all deployed. And then all of a sudden, an hour or two later, I get this email from this service called Shodan, which, by the way, like, this isn't random or unexpected or arbitrary. Well, maybe a little unexpected here. I'm a Shodan customer. I use this to monitor the IP address infrastructure, my public IPs, on all of the sites that I manage. So this came in saying, hey, your SNMP port is publicly accessible. And as you can see here, it's directly showing my contact information and information about this specific router, the firmware that it's running, the hardware that it is, like the whole 9 yards. It's just publicly on the internet all of a sudden. And then a few hours later, this other email comes in. It's like, hey, by the way, this is the web configuration portal for your router. It is also public on the internet. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? It turns out that in this particular configuration on Ubiquiti hardware, it doesn't have any restriction on admin interfaces. It just shoves it on literally every IP address the box has, including your public WAN interface. I don't know why this is. This is not how I would assume a router should be set up by default. This is not how any consumer routers work. All commercial routers that I've used all have a separate control plane from the routing plane. And even Ubiquiti hardware has a separate control plane on a separate VLAN. Like, this makes no sense at all to me why this is the default setup and there's no direct way to actually disable this, it looks like. So anyway, those are the emails that I got. If I go over to the Shodan monitoring over here, you can actually see my dashboard here. You can see some of the different boxes that I have available. This one right here is the router in question. Some of these ports were actually holdovers from the old CenturyLink box because it even had some publicly available ports. That way they can update the firmware remotely, which I already didn't like to begin with, you know, being security conscious and all. But you can clearly see that it has 80.443 available, which it should not. And also port 22 is available. You can SSH into the box if you know the credentials. And by default, the way Ubiquiti does it, it's just a username and password that they assign to you. So if somebody gets into my Ubiquiti account, they can figure out my username and password for this specific deployment and log directly into this box and have full admin rights on it. All of that's super scary to be on the public internet. It took a little bit of finagling to figure out how to do this correctly. So let's go to the Unifi network here. This right here is not exactly intuitive and obvious how to set this up. It's actually down here under Policy Engine. This 4 squares thing down here is what you need to click on. And then this screen right here still isn't what you need. You have to go up here to Advanced, and then you get just a normal firewall table. And this is what I was expecting. This is what I'm used to working with. You have your source address, destination address, source port, destination port, some protocol information. That's it. That's what a firewall configuration should look like. One thing that they do that's a little bit confusing here is that they have internet in versus internet local. Internet in, it turns out, is all of the connections that are being forwarded to my downstream routers, but not this router. So my OpenSense boxes would all qualify as internet in. And then internet local is this box, this specific router, this gateway, and nothing else. Even more confusing is that to be able to set up the rule correctly and actually have it apply right, I have to explicitly tell it which IP address this own box has. Even though it has options to select the box itself, it was not correctly applying the rules unless I explicitly told it which IP address I wanted to apply these rules to. I think in this regard, Ubiquiti has some really serious hardcore work to do on securing their boxes and making this interface more intuitive and more user-friendly for somebody setting this up, because if I didn't have those Shodan alerts, I wouldn't even known that all this stuff was publicly accessible. Like, that's kind of scary and dangerous. And I just wanted to show this real quick, what I did, what I set up, so you guys can do it yourself. So essentially, why are these, oh, that was weird. Like, I guess the bottom of the page you can't click on unless you scroll further down. Again, Ubiquiti sometimes has weird UI quirks. So go create entry. Again, we want to do internet local, give it a name, just Bob. Make sure you select drop. You have to go TCP and UDP, or one or the other. I just select both, that way I don't have to think about it. And then you have to do your IP address, which again, if you go to network, you can select the gateway, but then you can't put in the port. All of a sudden the port's gone. That makes no sense. If you go to list, like I tried using port groups with SNMP, it did not work. The only way I found this to actually get this to work is I have to go to IP, manually type in the IP, manually type in the port number, and then apply the rule. Is the only way I've actually had this thing successfully apply the rule to block the traffic. I think Ubiquiti has, like I said, a little bit of work to do here, and if you have a similar setup, go check your security profile right now. You can use an external port scanning tool to see if you're vulnerable, what ports are available. I love using Shodan. It's something I would probably recommend to just about anybody. Just plug in your IP addresses into it to get some passive monitoring on your infrastructure. But otherwise, that's about all I got for you today. But before I go, I just want to say you might want to hit that subscribe button, because you see this laptop here and another laptop I just got over there a couple days ago. Those are probably going to be the next 2 videos just talking about these laptops. I want to get back into doing fun hardware stuff. This laptop has a 780 watt brick. So until next time, later y'all.